Welcome back, everybody. We're here at the Sun is Coming podcast.
Hey.
I'm here with Kaleb, my co-host, and John. Dude, thank you for coming up, man. Another Rockford man.
A15.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Me, Virgil Abloh, Fred Van Vliet.
These are all Rockford natives.
Yeah, dude.
I didn't
Holding it
even
down
know.
for the A15.
Dude,
I am not in that category.
That's so funny, man. I feel like I was trying to think of this morning, like the first time I'm sure that we've met somewhere before today, but I remember seeing you at Mark and Tati's wedding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Back, this was, I don't know, 2 summers ago, 2 Julys ago, something like that.
Mi familia.
Yeah. But great people and lots of mutual connections with all of so many people that we both know from Rockford and City First. And
I just want to say
all of those things.
I love all church integrated. Anyone that's trying to advance the church. So, but Ampa is the first people that invited me on their podcast,
Because we have good taste.
Good taste.
We sure do.
MXU, I bought the bags full price, I have a $100 MXU Carhartt bag, And every time I do it, this would be funny, a little beef for DJ. Every time I use it, which I don't travel with it often, but whenever I do travel with it, I'll take a picture with it and I'll say, on my way to run sound. Like I use I don't even know what I'm doing. And then they always repost me, And then anyone that knows me is like, he's not a tech guy. Yep. He's a phony.
Well, now he uses AI to mix and, it's fine.
That's
easy.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
AI plugin.
What years did you go to MXU?
So they were at, when I was on staff at Elevation, I think it was MXU, but there's a bunch of integrators were at our broadcast location in Valentine.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. Well, so you're not in Rockford anymore.
No.
Okay. Where are you at now?
We're in Franklin, Tennessee.
Okay. Franklin, Tennessee.
Just south of Nashville.
And give us just a, high level.
Yeah.
As high level as you want. Overview of how did you get into ministry?
Yeah.
Because you do something related to the church.
Yep.
That's why you're on this podcast.
Yep.
What did that journey look like for you? How did you end up going from Rockford to Franklin? And take that wherever you want.
Yeah. Well, I grew up like church adjacent in that my mom never brought us to churches. She brought us to like weird revivals, or like a Joyce Meyer pop-up.
Oh yeah.
So I was always like around that stuff, but it would be like my memory of like going to churches would be that we would always leave them. Like that we were like, I feel like we were like constant church shoppers. Like my memory growing up is leaving in the middle of church and leaving in the middle of movies, just like getting up. It's like, and I was like 7, 8, I don't know what the pastor said, but there'd be these moments where it'd be like, nope, or leave it. And
That's
like, imagine
funny.
we were that family that would like,
Wow. Was that because of, acute theological differences that your mom would have with whatever was happening?
I'm trying to think, I do remember my parents being, very political in their expression of Christianity early on. And so maybe that was it, and we would always try different styles, more on the charismatic word of faith side of like things. And so like, even like for summers, my mom would like drive us down to like IHOP,
Oh yeah.
and like, I think I'm okay. I don't think anything, I think, I check with my counselor, like nothing happened to me, like, and I just remember those sitting there in the back of these like forever worship rooms. And this was like when I was small. And I just been so bored. I'm like, this is just so boring, or like they brought us up to the Toronto outpouring, like this revival. And so it wasn't really until we lived in Central Florida. My parents had been divorced now for a while. I was on our second stepdad and we're now in Central Florida. And some really, really attractive girls that I met at a Methodist church that like my mom, you see again, we were just all over the, I don't know why. We're at this
Joyce
Methodist
Meyer's
church.
Word of Faith, IHOP Methodist Church.
Yeah, so I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like at an Ash Wednesday, and I'm 13, and I'm like, I guess I would have been more like 15. I'm like, what is happening? I guess my mom's, searching. And then, I just met these girls, and like our Methodist youth group was like, and this is nothing against Methodists. I'm just, my experience. There's a lot, we're just a classic youth group of like 25 kids that did not care at all. Yeah. And we were all there just kind of like, we'd be cussing, we'd be like, go to a corner in the church and just swear and then be like, nothing, I feel like we'd purposely like try to make out on church grounds, it'd be like, we could go make out with each other anywhere. It'd be like a Friday at like 11 a.m. And we'd go, let's drive to the Methodist church parking lot and like do bad things, and just make out with each other,
That's
just
hilarious.
Not group makeouts. I just want that to be clear. Okay. Just individual.
It's interesting to see. I won't jump ahead in your story, but I see how this kind of connects.
Okay.
This makes sense. I see how this is going. Anyway, carry on.
Well, and I just remember, there was these set of girls. I won't name them because we live in the age of social media, but you know who you are if you're listening. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think, maybe they're listening, but they came, one specifically came back around our friend group one summer, and she was like just genuinely different. And these were girls that we were like hooking up with often, and like they were buying, like they had money too, which we didn't have, my friend group. And so they were like buying us tickets to the House of Blues, like all this stuff. And this one summer, like this one girl came back and she was like very different and like, I don't do that stuff anymore. And then we ended up going, all of us with her, to this other youth group, which, was my first foray into a non-denominational church or just attractional church, like whatever words describe it. It was just, they were just a group of people that I think exemplify what has somewhat become the norm of churches. We're like, hey, we love God, we love people, and we're going to we have electric guitars and we have load in and load out and everything like that. And, long story short, I ended up giving my life to Jesus in that church. And because we were a small church, everyone needed to serve. And our youth pastor was also the production director. And so I started doing set up and tear down for our Wednesday night youth group and for 5 a.m. Sunday church. This is before LED screens. So we were cranking out those big old screens.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I got that's how I met Jesus and got saved. And my friend Zach, he's a great motion graphic designer to this day. I remember this girl I brought from my school. I was just a girl. I just wanted to know Jesus. And she was telling me, no, I'm not going to go to your summer camp. I'm not going to go to your summer camp. So I was like, you should come to the thing that changed my life. And then my friend Zach, who was like a sophomore when I was a junior, and he like skipped school to make videos for the church, like early into like pirated After Effects, he was really good at that, and he does it full time at an agency, level now. But he played the promo video that he made, and she looks at me, and it was like I had like an Arcade Fire song in the background, it was like all those early like good vibes. And she looked at me, she goes, "Whoa, what is that? Like I want to go to that." And I go, That's the summer camp. Yeah. And then she went and then she met Jesus. Wow, and I think those are some of the formative things for me of just like, this is what church can be. It's this combination of like production and relationship. And, obviously like there's been a lot of comments about like churches overplaying marketing, overplaying production, overplaying these things. And I think there's some fair critique on that. But I just think for me, I also was brought up in a thing where like the relational aspect of church and the production element were actually like completely aligned. Yeah. Like that's just what I grew up in.
Yeah.
So
because you're creating something together.
Yeah.
And so it's like you mentioned marketing, production, all those are different expressions of some kind of art and creativity. Right. And so like where else besides the church do you have high schoolers getting invited in to create something like that and skip school to make art? Like that's very relational and 100%. Very connecting.
And like it was, again, I think there's a lot of ways as the church we're behind the times, but like that still was, that was 2007.
Yeah.
That was still pretty ahead of its time, what high schools, maybe had an AVL club, maybe, so it was awesome. And then the group of people a lot of people that started that church were from a church in Rockford, Illinois. They'd gone to a discipleship training center out there. And so after high school, I was a C student, like barely, and I hated school. And the only other thing that I was trying to do is be a pro Halo player. And this was before social media. And so we placed my senior year, the 2009 Halo 3 National Championships were in Orlando, and we went and we placed 63rd in the world, which
seems very good.
How many teams are in this competition?
So there was like 300 teams competing that day, and again, that was the top 300 teams in the world. Yeah. But again, that's especially then there was really no Twitch. I think it was Justin TV. YouTube was still very much so coming up.
Yep.
And there was no real, I just think I don't even know that Facebook really had hit. So there was no even networking apparatus for me to even know, and our team was our friend group. And so that kind of fizzling out led to me going like, well, I think the only other thing I feel good at is like this church thing. And so I went to Rockville, Illinois and ended up being at City First for 10 years. And then we ended up on staff at Elevation for 5 years, and now we're in Nashville. So
wow.
That's a good jump.
So when you were at those churches, just walk us through quickly, like when you were at City First for 10 years, what were you doing there on ministry? And then what were you doing at Elevation?
Yeah. So at City First, it was primarily youth ministry.
Okay.
But then I think as I had kind of and then again, youth ministry for me involved a lot of production. So I wasn't working with the Sunday morning production team as much until towards later. But I mean, everything was, based in creativity. You know, I think that was what we were trying to do in videos. And I mean, one time my team hated me for this, but I was like, guys, I want a triangle screen. And so for like maybe a whole year, everything we made had to be like exported into an upside down triangle, because it was like a part of our rebrand. And I was just like trying to, just all that stuff. And then when I was at Elevation, it was initially to be the youth pastor at our broadcast location, but then COVID happened. And so very quickly, I kind of had a bit of a multifaceted role where I was a part of our online team, as part of our next gen creative team. And like all of us at the time were all just helping other churches with production, with Zoom, with everything like that. And so, being at the broadcast location at Elevation really suited my kind of multifaceted ADHD mind, because I got to have my hands in a lot of people. And I just think being there took my love and appreciation for production and the people that do it just to a whole nother level, especially during COVID. I'm like, it's like, I don't know. I just like guys like, that were doing it. And I could name, so many of them. I was like, I just felt like I watched them put the entire church on their back, and I think production guys do that in a way every Sunday. But I think that was just one of those standout moments where I was just like, cemented in me forever. So I think a lot of pastors are like preaching and music adjacent. That's what I notice in a lot of pastors. I don't understand music at all. I'm not musical at all. So I feel like in the way a lot of pastors like relate to their worship team, but don't understand their production or tech guys. I'm like the opposite. When I look at musicians, I'm like, y'all are weird. And I don't know what you do, I'm not saying you don't do anything. I just don't understand it. But whereas but the production guys, the tech guys, like I'm like, those are my people.
Yeah. So. That's cool, man. That's cool. I'd be curious, like you obviously were exposed to some of this sort of church creative stuff in the context of youth ministry when you were a high school student. That's what kind of drew you to the church. And then you got to play a part in actually creating that experience in a couple of different environments for students as you stepped into ministry. Like, how did you see things evolving over those years as far as like what connected with, because as the, the people that are listening to this podcast, they're maybe worship leaders, creative directors, production people, some pastoral staff. Maybe they have, an involvement in youth ministries. Maybe they don't. But I think the things that change at that demographic, they have ripple effects across all demographics into, adult ministry, things like that. So I think I'd be curious, what did you see evolving as you were in ministry for those, almost 2 decades?
This is a weird statement because now like my full-time like job, I do a lot of things, but like our primary focus right now is we have a social first marketing agency called Scroll Company. And so we help like companies like Maxwell Leadership, Tithely, people that in the church world are recognized. We also work with non-Christian clients. Like we shoot stuff for Fortnite. There's some fun, exciting stuff. I think NDA stuff, but fun, cool stuff, right? So I'm a very pro social media guy. However, I feel like social media might be one of the worst things that's happened to church creativity because I think it started to confuse why we do what we do. So to me, the impact of my friend's video was because it reached a girl in the community we're trying to, that we're called to serve. I feel like now I wonder how much are church creatives making stuff to impress other church creatives. And so I think that it started to move. I think social media can really confuse pastors on what's actually working in their church, because I'll tell you right now, 90% of your videos that have 100,000 or more views are not reaching people in your city. And so you can create this feeling of success, the dopamine release that these platforms are designed to do, all the while you really might not be moving. I mean, I've heard of churches planning campuses based off of like Facebook impressions. And I'm like, no, that's not a real, that's not a real thing. Now, on the other side, like if you can use social media to get in-depth analytics to make some moves, but I just think that, that's one of the dangers I've seen of social media and how it's effective church creativity. Instead of us sitting in a room being like, what can we do to serve our community? What can we do to like serve our church, to amplify Jesus and our expression and reach our city and do our personal best? You know, even like songwriting now, I'm like, okay, are you writing because you feel this pressure to like have an album? Or are you writing because God's doing something in your local expression and you just want to serve them and put words to like equip, you know, your church. And then I think the other thing that social media hindered church creativity in is just, and it's a double-edged sword. I think people on one hand were very resourced, but then I feel like then it's like this whole copy, this copy thing. And so my thing is this, is I think that Christians should be excellent at social media. Companies like Amplio should be serving other churches. My warning to like on staff at local church guys is like, the question would be, make sure you're not impressing Christians around the country at the cost of giving your best to reach your city. Because it can be a lot of false success is what I've seen. And even like a great example is like when I was on staff Elevation, like we were known as like, you guys are the #1 leading edge in creativity and social media. And we were in the church world. But like, I'm like, but Audrey Kell High School has like, you know, like 4,000 kids and like 0.01% of them come to our church. And like in 5 years in Charlotte, I never met a single kid in Charlotte that was like, oh my God, your youth ministry social media, just when you interviewed Mike Todd in a car, it just changed my life. But we'd drop into Phoenix, Arizona, and we'd be like, hey, Elevation Youth Meetup, 50 kids would come. So I think what that illustrates is that social media is designed more so for global impact. And it's not always the best tool for regional kind of momentum. And I think that's where churches have to ask the question of like, what is our primary assignment? And certain churches do have an apostolic calling. Certain churches do have a national, global, statewide. But I would say most churches, you're like, dude, like serve your city. And when I think of the best things that I've done in ministry, like one of the best things I've ever done is, and this was at City First, and they still are doing this, we put a food pantry. We partnered with the Northern Illinois Food Pantry inside of a middle school that was in between the high school and the elementary school feeder system, and in a low income, very in need area. So like, and it was like us. And I'm like, talk about reaching your city and gaining a reputation. And so I just think you have to go. It's just like, hey, what's going to help you reach your city better? The best creative team in the world, or having a food pantry at every single school? And you're like, well, we shouldn't have to choose. No, totally. Conceptually, we don't have to choose. But in terms of how we allocate our time, our energy, our resources, and what we celebrate, I think all of us feel this pull towards social media because it gets hand claps from other Christians. And I think that's not always a good thing.
I think what you said there, that's really interesting because like social media, oftentimes when you think about what shows up in your feed, it's not necessarily stuff that's local to you only. It's stuff that you're interested in. So Christians, of course, are interested in Christian content, so they see your stuff. But if you're trying to reach people that are outside of that sphere already, like what are the things that are going to connect with them? And that's where some of this stuff comes in that, it's just a different way of thinking about it, not relying on social media to reach people that aren't actually interested in you at all.
Can I give churches like no church is taking me up on this. So like our company primarily works way more at the corporate level. Companies like Amplio, you know, and honestly, a lot of churches just can't afford the aggression we apply. And there's a lot of agencies different than ours that are meant to serve the church. You know, we have a nonprofit that actually services the church in more of an educational way to kind of counteract, because we love the church. We're not like, I'm a pastor at a local church. I'm not the senior pastor, just to be clear. But I serve in a local capacity. So I believe in the local church with all my heart. But no one's taken me up on this idea. I think that if churches want to use social media to serve their region, they should create the best youth sports podcast and content network. Because all the content's right there. You're celebrating people, and it would essentially start to ping regionally. So like out near Rockford and Roscoe would be like the Nick 10, Nick 10 Sports, or maybe you'd have to go a bit broader, like Northern Illinois.
Yep.
But if your church, like think about it, if every time a young person did something exceptional in your town, you were the ones talking about it, and they could go there to see immaculate clips of themselves. This is how we'd get into a lot of the schools in Rockford, is we would bring our photographers and we would shoot headshots. We would shoot stuff for recruiters and everything like that. And so the way the church would run it, it'd be like, Northern Illinois sports, sports news. And it'd be, you could even put in the bio, powered by, such and such church. Yep. Or you could do the longer play and just go like, hey, we're accruing all this influence, locally. And so again, I'm not saying that overnight you're going to grow your church to 1,000 like that, but I think that's a bit more of how, another thing that I think pastors should be doing more so is going, who are the people in your church that are already content creators? So the next Mr. Beast is in one of our churches.
Yeah.
But what are any of our churches doing to identify, deploy, disciple this person? And Mr. Beast, from what we can tell, was a Christian or was involved in local church. And his conclusion of local church, well, he didn't find any place for his talent. Again, that could totally be on him. Yeah. But I think sometimes what I see is churches so quick to create the content instead of going like, but aren't we called to equip the saints? And even there was a guy that I was pastoring at Elevation, and I just remember he was going through a really hard time. And, Elevation is like probably has still to this day, like biggest social media presence of a church right now. Millions of impressions, millions and millions of impressions. And this one guy that was going through a really hard time had more followers than all of Elevation combined. And he's one guy. And I felt the Holy Spirit really challenged me as a pastor to just remind myself that I think when it comes to vocational pastors, the greatest impact we'll ever do is not in the things we build, it's the people that we develop, and it's the people we champion. So I think some of the church's best social media impact will actually just be coming around the content creators who are already in their church and stewarding them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Really good.
I want to dig into a little bit of what you were talking about of, when you're in youth ministry in 2008 and this video's played for, this girl and watching it and the impact that it made in her life. And then everything we're talking about, social media, the dopamine hits that whether it's church staff or creative leaders in a church are getting, whether it's the right thing or not for their church and serving the community. But when you see that in the youth ministry side over the last 15 years, what are those things now that those churches can be doing or should be doing? Maybe some are doing well, some are not.
What's the equivalent of a video with an Arcade Fire song today?
Yeah, because it's you're so much of everything at our disposable, at our phones, everything that we look at, we can see anything from anybody on the planet, and reaching those types of people, I feel like is harder than ever because of just the amount of noise. And so I wondered what things you have been seeing or seen that have been done really well that you feel like, hey, more churches should be thinking about these things like that, because I think it's just something we should talk about.
Well, I think a lot of the people that are commenting on the state of the modern church, in the West, are angry at the apparatus instead of the way the apparatus is being used. And so you just got guys out there who are anti-LED screen. And I would love to sit across from them and be like, okay, so just help me see the theology. So you just hate that rectangle shape. You hate that it projects images. And so what would be a more holy equivalent? Projector. Okay, so that technology is fine. It's if you start to deconstruct, you're all of a sudden it's wait, so paper, a man invented paper. And again, what an LED screen is to Christians today is what paper once was in the 1400s when Gutenberg started. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Technology disrupting and being integrated into new forms of the human experience, and especially how we worship, is just part of the human experience. And so I think the question for church is we have to go when it comes to Sunday, what is the number one thing that we can do on Sunday that cannot be done anywhere else? And I would say they can get talks other places. They can listen to music other places. As much as community is, I think definitely community is still an advantage of the church. Still, there's other places. Movie theaters are going to come back, y'all. Like malls will come, they'll make them win. Like because people, it's already coming back. Lionsgate and films and their last Hunger Games movie, they spent like $100 million on it, made like 30. And you know what they did with the one that's coming out in November? They spent $300 million on it. They just got even better actors. So I'm just like, these crazy other places will tap into the community piece. Community is one of the greatest advantages of the church, but even that can technically be replicated. I think the number one thing that churches can do on Sundays that nowhere else can is create a truly transcendent experience. And that's where I think we need to start shifting back. So we shifted from sanctuaries to auditoriums. I think we need to shift back to sanctuary language. Because think about it, in this noisy, AI, war-ridden, you don't even know if the war is real. We don't even know if what we're seeing is real. People, like industries are going to be coming up and down. Right before this podcast, we just read, I just got an alert that Allbirds, which is a shoe company, said, nope, we're an AI company now. You're like, and now what I bet you if we read it, I bet you they had to lay off a lot of people because they probably had a lot of shoemakers. So this is just, and then just take all that on top of the normal human experience. We all have kids, it's just like life is crazy. So what can Sunday do that I think the church has always done that will be our advantage always? It's creating a transcendent experience. So to me, when we're creating content or creating environments for church, I think we've got to a little bit less worry about the multiplication effect or the utility of it, or can we use it for socials, and just double down on going like we are going to, for the people that are there in this service, we're going to help to create a transcendent experience. We're going to create an emotional experience, a spiritual experience. And even, I was at this thing in Wyoming that this missions group puts on. And David Platt, they do a great like gathering. And there's like 40 of us in there. And these are all like, there's like business leaders, like influencers. And we're in this like room and they played this like video. And as a social media guy, the first thing I'm analyzing, I'm like, this video would bomb on YouTube because it's just not made. It's just, it's no hooks. It's just people would swipe off of it immediately. It starts with like this sad story about a girl. And you're like, I want to know about like what's happening in sports because I don't want that, but as it played, it crushed in the room. And so it just reminded me, I'm like, there's still a place for those videos. And we just can't get so focused on social media reach and the next campus and the next service and the next thing that we lose sight of like, is the thing we're making right now. And the last thing I'll say on this, because I'd be curious your guys' thoughts, is like, there's a church in Ohio, Crossroads Church in Ohio. They just did some huge LED integration. I don't know who did it, but there's guys that had a huge problem with it. And now again, if people are, if there's a church with high production, but low pastoral ability, obviously that's a problem. I feel like we all know that. But as I was watching the technical capabilities of this LED screen, I was thinking about my kids and, my 3-year-old's in the other room. I'm like, wow. Do I think that she can worship God in a stained glass old chapel? I love that that's coming back. Sure. Maybe. Cool. I'm with it. I believe. But also a modern sanctuary where we're using the available technology to illustrate the word of God and create transcendent experiences like never before. And I think that's what happened with my friend is that Arcade Fire song mixed with that B-roll of a thing and the written script. And I also think that that's something that AI will never truly be able to replicate. So that's what we should be focusing on. Was that too whimsical of an answer?
So thinking back to what you said a minute ago about like the transcendent experience, creating a sanctuary, and I think like, what are the kinds of experiences and environments and, the feeling that the rest of the week is characterized by? And like, what's the opposite of that? If it's going to be distinct from what is happening in the rest of your week. So like, if the rest of the week is loud and fast, like how are your Sunday morning gatherings creating moments that are slow, quiet,
Yeah.
If the rest of your week is like surface level, how is your Sunday morning creating something that is the next level deeper, If it's creating spaces where you can have a conversation with another human at a level that no other place in your, in your daily life is created to facilitate that kind of interaction. Like those are the kind of things that distinguish. It's not going to be because you had better music or you had a bigger LED wall, but you could use that LED wall to create a moment that facilitates 100%. That kind of interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think that, that's exactly the right way to think about it. Is just reverse engineering the spiritual, mental, and emotional state of people and going, if when they come on Sunday, they feel the opposite of that, they'll give here, they'll serve here, and I think, I just don't know that there's ever, I think it's been a while, like it's been a long time in history since I think we've needed the church to be a sanctuary for our souls. I mean, we probably always did need it to be that. I just mean, I feel like it's like
an acute feeling, Yeah.
And I just think, to me, the future of church growth is not marketing tactics. It's not even multi-site. It's not flyers. It's not even AI optimization or SEO. I think the future of church growth is someone going to his buddy at work and be like, how was your weekend? Dude, it was awesome. It was crazy, dude. What? Man, my church, like they did this hymn or this new song, and again, it's not about style. Like I don't think it's about style. I think it's about intention. So whether you're utilizing an old building and an old song, or you're using an LED screen, my buddy, we should overlay this on the thing. They just did this opener for their conference where it was just a really well done opener. And like towards the end, it crescendoed to this like reveal on main stage where there's an LED cross and they had like an animated, like sketched Jesus. And it was just the perfect, just production moment where everyone is honed in. And my 6-year-old was with me and and you're just like, and everyone just, and then like, I can't remember which, worship song they were singing. But I remember what I felt. I remember what I saw. And then they had this like, just on this cross on the LED screen, they had like blood start to like trickle down. And it was just, and then the whole cross was like red. And we were all just like sitting there. We're just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And I think not that every Sunday needs to be about amplifying production. Because I think that there's a lot of Sundays where we overproduce, I just think at the end of the day, it's just knowing that that's the intention is we're creating a sanctuary for a soul. Yeah. We're creating a quiet space for an anxious mind. I saw like Carey Nieuwhof and John Mark be like, Gen Z wants everything to be quiet. And I go, no, they don't. And the Bible is full, and I didn't watch the full thing. So shout out to JMC and Carey Dog. But I'm just like, what I don't want people to think is that like Gen Z, they're all just want to be Catholic and they all just want to just meditate. Yeah. I do think that's important and we've got to lean into that. But I also think it's just as important for us to create moments of victory and triumph and inspiration and like all of that stuff. And I think that's all throughout Scripture is like, there was the shofar, and there was, and there was the incense. Should I take this FaceTime right now?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you should.
We are on a podcast. We are recording.
Hi. Sorry. Oh, Kaleb, hi.
Frank, it's so good to see you, dude. Tuning in live to the Amplio podcast is Frank Chevelle. Say something to the production community.
I respect the people in this call, and it's a blessing to be a part of this.
Wow.
I love Frank Chevelle, one of the great lighting guys in the kingdom of God, right?
Oh boy.
Etc.
Etc. Well, so funny. Glad seeing you. I was at Portillo's. Be blessed, brother. I'll let you go.
I'll call you when I'm done with this podcast, but we figured we needed to just answer with you on the
guest experience right here. Guest appearance.
Guest appearance from Frank Chevelle. I love you, brother. I'll call you after.
Funny.
Bye-bye.
Amazing.
Frank Chevelle, man.
Amazing.
My first church that I went on staff at, I remember, maybe I've told the story on one of the other podcasts before. On my resume, I definitely lied about my experience that I had in lighting, that I was like very proficient in Jan's Fist. I don't think I'd ever touched it before. And I remember my first day, my boss was like, man, I'm so glad you have all of this experience in lighting because I need like our lighting programmer can come in this weekend and can you do it? I was like, yep, sounds great. Call Frank. Frank, I need help right now. And I think this was like right after he had put up like some, it was like an iTunes universe that like, I don't know what it was a long time ago that Apple was doing something like that. It might've been in their podcast. Yeah. It was like the 6-part series. And I like watched them all and read and listened to them all. And I'm like, okay. And I programmed and that Sunday, everything was fine. So way to go, Frank. You
talk about a dude who genuinely has like, you know how we always say like raise up production volunteers.
Oh yeah, dude.
Sometimes it's easier to say than do, right? This dude actually has done it. I've seen it. You know, like I've literally seen him take kids that were in 6th grade.
Yep.
And now some of those guys are like guys people are hiring, you know, to do lighting. So shout out Frank.
Awesome.
Killer lighting dude.
One of the legends.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think what you said, Kaleb, I think that has a higher premium. I think a lot of the premium on church over the last 20 years is like, we got to get the gospel out.
Yeah.
But you know what? There is a lot of other ways we can get the gospel out than Sunday morning platform. We have social media. We have social media influencers. Like we can be blasting it and the people in your church every single day can be equipped and trained to go win their world for Jesus and go talk about it. But it's like, what's the one thing that only the church on Sunday can do? It's sitting there and going like, man, what are people feeling, experiencing, and going through?
Yeah.
And how do we push up against that? How do we create a confessional moment? How do we create, even just like, I do think that one of the trad things, for lack of a better term, that we need to come back to is like communion. Like communion is just a built-in moment that was 100% a Jesus idea that the early church was obsessed with. That was just a centering moment.
Yep.
And I just think that that's an example where it's like, don't reinvent the wheel, but how can we build around a communion moment? How can we illustrate a communion moment?
It's a communication challenge.
Yeah.
If you can't communicate what is meaningful and transcendent and impactful and how the people that are there in the gathering can receive the communion in a way that's actually impactful in their life.
Right.
It's not because the practice is not good.
Right.
Maybe we need to hone our language and our understanding of how it's supposed to be formative and what kind of discipleship, practice is it supposed to be in people's lives, and why would we do it every week?
100%.
Because people did it every week for a long time for some reason.
Yeah.
And, we can evolve sort of like the way we apply what it is representing to the things that people are feeling today.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there's not still a really key and important transcendent value that is, across time and space and centuries of Christianity that's still applicable today.
100%. 100%.
That's cool, man. I was, as we're talking about, the metaphor of an LED screen and you think of, and again, like when churches started putting stained glass in their churches, that is very, like still today, stained glass is incredibly expensive. And there's very few people, like I think of First Pres, Glen Ellen, and they were replacing some stained glass in their auditorium that they have. And there's one dude in the country who can do it or do some whatever repair of whatever they needed to have happen. And just like, did the early church throw as large of a fit about those types of things in their churches and the money and time that was spent on that versus what churches do today? I don't know. But it's just an interesting concept in thinking about the differences between, like you're saying, an LED versus the projector. Like what's the difference and all of those things.
Well, I think that's the conversation that we need to have, is that I feel like there's two voices online. The one voice is like, everything that the church currently is bad. And you're just like, dude, who are you helping right now? You know? But then a lot of the answers to that voice is, everything about the church is awesome.
Yep.
And you're like, no. And so to me, I'm like, even when you look at some of the historical realities of like, on one sense, some of the great Catholic artistic pieces we have, some of them have some of the most beautiful stories ever. And some of them, are just breathtaking. And some of them were like things that like evil kings paid for as a way to manipulate people. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. And it's just like, so, but we can't argue at the apparatus. We have to consider the utilization of the apparatus. And so it's like, I feel like there are likely churches out there that don't utilize technology, and they're probably in sin because they're doing it in some kind of legalistic.
For a reason that is not actually healthy.
For an unhealthy reason. Yeah. Just like there are churches that might be dipping into production, and there are spirit-led reasons to go multi-site, and there are flesh-led reasons to go multi-site. But there's no inherent problem with the apparatus of saying our church now needs to have some multiple locations. It's more about how is it being done and why is it being done. And I think that's what applies to, production and technology.
I mean, I think that's something you have to ask in every area of life. Like, what is the motivation here? What is this feeding my ego or my insecurity or my pride versus serving others and like creating healthy environments or whatever? Like that's just good life advice there, I think.
100%.
Well, so as you're kind of in this current season, you mentioned that you're involved in, some, marketing, branding, company stuff. You serve organizations, but you also are involved at a local church. So you're actually you have a venue to live out a lot of these things in real life, right? In a real local community. So maybe talk a little bit about that. What is that church context like? What's your role there? How do you see some of these dynamics we've been talking about playing out in that church community? Yeah.
So when we transitioned off of staff at Elevation, and really the impetus of that was that like essentially like my journey on staff there was like, hey, we want you to be a campus pastor, and in a multi-site satellite setting. And at a time in my life where I feel like I was actually becoming more convinced that like God had put a creative calling on my life. And it was a good like 2 or 3 years of going back and forth. And it was just one of these moments where it's like, hey, after a lot of really transparent and healthy, proactive conversations, we just realized that like their vision for me was different than what we felt like was God's vision for us. And so I think it was a really great transition. But pretty much our first thought after that is, where are we going to plant ourselves? That is going to be conducive. So one of the things we did is we didn't leave the church right away. So we were in Charlotte, so we're still a part of Elevation. We feel like it's important to have a church community, to be practitioners. I'm not saying that it's bad if someone takes a couple or a few weeks off of church. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to make someone feel guilty if they don't go 52 Sundays. But then the next thing was like, wherever we move, we need to have a church covering, for every reason of life. And I did find it important that if I was going to be someone that was talking about the church, I should have my hands in the soil, know? I think there are a few things more dangerous than a consultant who is no longer a practitioner. I think you get really weird, and especially in our fast-paced world, and I think that's why I tend to appreciate the church production community. It's because a lot of the leading experts are saying what they're thinking behind a board, and they're showing you why this. You know what I mean? And I think there are other fields, like traditionally, like my experience in youth ministry is, I'm like, dude, you're 57. You haven't led a 6th grade small group in 20 years. You don't even know what Fortnite is. Why are you the youth ministry expert? Not that 23-year-old me should have been either. I just think that if you're going to be a consultant, you should also be a practitioner. That's like a conviction of mine.
So good.
And the way you practition might look different than other people, but I think that's a key. And so our church, we're in Franklin, Tennessee, and
there's like no churches in Franklin. I heard it's really hard to find a church in Franklin.
Well, and so partially because of that, our church doesn't have a market. We don't market. We don't have social media. And I'm not saying that that's something that everyone should do. I think that's in a lot of ways unique to our church and the area that we're in. Because especially with some of the people that are a part of our church, whether because of their platform or influence or skill set, we could get a crowd real quick. And so I think we are sensitive, to that fact. And so our church, our pastor, Pastor Brian, says that like his vision for the church in terms of growth is that we grow at the pace of relationship. And so it's a really interesting thing because, for instance, Easter's coming up. The only way any of our neighbors will know, there is no excuse. There is no mailer. There's no meta ad. There is no anything. Only way that any of mine and my wife's neighbors would know that our church is happening is if we told them. And so it's been cool. And I give my wife most of the credit because she's I feel like my wife is like the pastor of our neighborhood. You know, she knows like everyone's name. There's like now like 3 or 4 people from our neighborhood that go to our like 200 person church.
That's awesome.
And it's like cool because it was just relational.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think, you know, and we do take communion, you know, like very seriously. You know, we've been using the frame, charismatic. So like Eucharist plus charismatic. And, you know, we'd say liturgy, not service order, you know, and offering, we do an offering recitation. We don't really do an offering pitch. And like, you know, again, this is not like, I'm trying to be descriptive, not prescriptive here. Because I really do think that much of this is about the spirit and intentionality than it is style. Because if we're not careful, maybe some of the way we saw churches all of a sudden try to be the NFL overnight. If all of a sudden overnight churches try to go be like Eastern Orthodox, that's just as cringe. It's, you know, like, this is what I think the memes in 2 years are going to be. The memes of like pastors wearing like cool clothes and Nikes are going to be replaced with like dudes wearing robes. Like, you know what I mean? Like charismatic, like worship leaders are just randomly going to rock up in like a robe, you know, and you're like, dude, what do you do? Like, wear jeans, bro. Like, and I think, and I say that because I think at the spirit of it is like, it's got to come from an authentic place. Yeah. It's got to come from it. And if you make some of those moves back to tradition or forward into a modern expression, it should be done from a place of conviction.
Well, and contextualization too, because you might draw from Eastern Orthodox history, you might draw from other denominational history, other like church father practices, but it's not just like exactly what they did we're going to do. It's like, hey, there's aspects that speak to our community from these different strains, and we can kind of craft something that is really meaningful now. It's not just copying what they did in, you know, the 1500s, and that's good, you know, just because it's old.
Exactly. And it's like, we can't have chronological snobbery either way. I would say that more so the church has suffered from like historical snobbery, meaning like if it's old, it's bad. Right. We're still stupid people from the 80s and 90s. Now we're the cool, relevant church. Right. Relevant, you know? But now I almost feel like now the opposite is like, now you see people like quoting church fathers online and they're like, it had a St. Augustine quote, so it must be right. And I can be mean and maybe a little racist. And, you know, you're just like, whoa, like you can't just like throw dead guy quotes on stuff. And it's like,
it's a proof text for whatever your opinion is. Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, to me, so like the framework that I feel like I'm looking through everything is like our job as Christians is to build an ancient future. And we have this rare task. And because I think it's the nature of an eternal God, a God that is both then and now. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the God of the mountain and he is the God of the microchip. Like, I think that he is a creative God that created creative beings. And so I think that even if Adam and Eve had never sinned, they would have created LED screens. I think even technology is not a result of the fall of man. God said, be fruitful and multiply, have dominion. And so, you know, you could even say that like things like Adam and Eve naming the animals was like one of the first creative acts of humanity. And God let them do that. And a lot of people have, when discussing technology, have kind of talked about it as like technology at its best is just like creative problem solving. Like, what does a microwave do? Well, it's a creative way to solve food preparation. What is a air fryer? It is a response to the microwave. You know, it's all just trying to improve human life. And so I think that when we approach, you know, old or new, again, something is not automatically good because it's new. It's not automatically bad. It's all about the spirit in which we use it and how we apply it.
It's good, man. It's good.
I love, before you guys got here, I had looked up your church on church's website. Yeah. And like what you're describing is exactly what it was. Like it's the only church website that I think I've ever been on. Doesn't have photos of the church. Doesn't have who's the team. I don't know. Who could say? Here's the church time. Here's the big old phone number at the bottom. And I actually loved it. Yeah. Because it's almost I don't want to say like a mystery is the wrong way to say it, but there's more intrigue that I have to learn more about what that is rather than doing it the exact same way that every other church does. Especially, we joke about, another church in Franklin. It's like they're literally everywhere, and they're all large. It reminds me of being in Texas or Dallas, but I like that approach and the way that you guys are looking at that from that perspective of people going, hey, we want you to come and want you to know who we are, but we're not going to, kind of go way out of our way to try to blast you in marketing the way that, so many other advertising companies or churches will do for you every day on your phone and your ads you see and all of that. And
we have a podcast. It's just for members only. So
interesting.
So again, should we or should we not use technology? It's all just about going, are we using it in the way that God has intended for the human race to use it? And then more specifically, are we using it in the way that's conducive to our church? So our pastor does not have a conviction to reach 1 million people. He has a conviction to steward a small group of people really well.
Yeah.
And part of that means that we need to be showing up in their feeds. And so if a world event is happening, or if there are questions that podcasters are answering, we feel as a pastoral team, we do feel a burden to say, Joe Rogan is not going to be the one answering these questions for our people.
Yeah.
We are going to try to provide resources. We are going to try to be there for them in that way. And I when I do talk to churches about social media, oftentimes I'd say, hey, social media is actually the worst place to try to address tough topic. Social media is the worst place to address tough topics to your church because you're inviting the whole world in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should be, but private platforms, private communications, private digital, I tell churches all the time, I say the most important digital platform you can focus on is non-algorithmic digital communication tools. Whether that's Planning Center or Discord or Slack or email.
Yep.
Creating a digital hub where you speak directly to your church and your church only, and you're not hoping that Zuckerberg's algorithm shows it to them or not. Yeah. And then you're not also dealing with all the controversy, Yeah. And I just think a lot of times you see pastors be like, well, I'm trying to be present in the moment. I go, but doing it on social media invites the entire world. Are you called to be the pastor of the world? Are you? Maybe I don't know. If you're an apostle, go off, King, but I think that a lot of times pastors just think, well, I want to show up in this cultural moment, but for us, it's but we've sent it to our members.
Yeah.
And we're okay if we don't feel the pressure to pastor all of Nashville.
That's good.
Yeah.
We just don't.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I love what you said about growing at the speed of relationship. I think that's so, such a challenge to even churches that are thinking about their ministries in smaller blocks. Is your kids ministry growing at the speed of relationships, right? Is your volunteer team for production, is your student ministry, your youth ministry growing at the speed of relationship? I think that's just a helpful lens to think about. Not, hey, we're trying to develop this team, we should run more Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever. It's no, who's a friend that you would love to serve with you or be a part of this? And just, did you ask them?
Yeah.
It's just a different, it's easy to just forget about the most basic steps that, help grow an organization.
Yeah. And even, I'm really close with the crew at Church of the Highlands. And I know for them right now, they're even shifting their growth track to be less of an automatic volunteer push. I think they're realizing we want this to be a mechanism for people to find their place in the church. And that's a massive church. Yeah. And one of the things that they're even doing is one of the pathways now in their kind of updated growth track is do you know how to tell your testimony? Just think about that. Think about the power of 50% of your church knowing how to tell their testimony to a coworker, a fellow mom at soccer. I think your church would explode.
So much more targeted and effective than running ads on social.
Yeah. Or trying to do TikTok dances or I don't know.
Billboards. You should buy more billboards.
And maybe I'll at him right now because this could be some fun. Dialogue. But someone like Brady Shearer, who I think does great work for the church, a lot of the top church accounts he posts are churches that have high views and high followers. So I go, so how are you deciding if a church is good at social media? Because if it's high views and high followers, I can almost promise you it's not people in their city. And so if we're not careful, we're incentivizing pastors to, again, fall in line with the algorithm, fall in line with trends that are reaching people anywhere but where they're at. Yeah. And I just go, what's a better use of your time? And I think it's not doing trend videos. it's probably doing a video for a private part of your community. Like, I would rather pastors make a piece of content each week just geared towards the business leaders in their church that they email to them privately or write and send to them privately versus some general, podcast.
Yeah.
Because being at Elevation and working with churches like Sandals and like these churches that do have a wide online reach, man, when you start to reach people around the country and around the world, you do start to feel like you have to you have to serve them.
Yeah.
And so you just as a church have to know, like, you're creating children by having an online presence. The question is, are you set up to parent them? Because there are churches like Elevation that would tell you, no, that we are and we will and we can.
Yeah.
And they're trying to provide pastoral guidance and community and all that stuff to it. But if you're randomly popping up viewers, but you're not pastoring them, you're not discipling them, you don't have a mechanism to take viewers and invite them into the life of the church, I'm just like, is that vertical energy?
Yeah.
Versus what you could be doing locally. So I just think it's always ironic because I'm like the social media guy, but I'm kind of like the church social media skeptic. So I'm very bullish that there's never been a time where it's been more important for Christians to make more and better content. Please give me better options on YouTube for my kids. Please, make video games, like make music, make movies. Like we need Christians in these creative and technological fields. It's just, is that the church's role, or is the church's role to pastor, shepherd, and create transcendent environments for those people? And even like someone like, Virgil Oblat, like he's from Rockford,
Really?
Yeah, he's from Rockford. He played for Boylan High School, Catholic school. And so people know him as a Chicago guy, but that's just because, as you guys know, it's like, if you guys described where you live, you'd probably say Chicago.
Sure.
It's just because we're close to it, right?
Yep.
And Rockford is not necessarily like the coolest spot. And so, like Virgil just said Chicago, but like his family's from Rockford. And like during the World Cup in 2016, he gave the Boylan boys and girls soccer team his off-white World Cup jerseys, which had a resale value of $6,000,
That's crazy.
And everyone in Rockford was like, the kids at Boylan they're not the ones that need but he's just trying to shout out his school. Anyway, I look at the way he ended his life, and it was very evident the way he ended his life that he was involved in church community, like people like Pastor Rich Wilkerson Jr. in Miami, and you could tell he had a spiritual influence in his life. And I'm like, yes, thank God that Pastor Rich Wilkerson Jr. knew that his role was to not be the best creative. His role was to be a pastor to one of the world's greatest artists that I think has ever lived. And even like I saw some stuff recently like Kanye and Travis Scott did. And I don't know, I haven't done a deep dive, but my first thought was just like, at glance, I'm just like, rest in peace, Virgil, because he was friends with all those guys. And you start to wonder, just like, oh, well, how much of that tight-knit artist community was someone like Virgil actually being the solid one in their relationships? And how was he able to do that? Well, it's because he had a pastor being a solid, so I just think that we're just at this moment where we have, as the church, I think we've really got to go, what is our call in the kingdom? What is our piece in the body? And we're not the heroes.
Yeah.
Pastors in the church, we're not the heroes. We're supposed to be the facilitators. We're supposed to equip the saints to do ministry. And God will honor us. We'll be a hero in heaven.
Yeah.
But I just think we've got to make sure we're not taking the lead role. And I think a lot of times church can feel like, hey, minion off the streets, come build this brand we're doing here thing. And I'm like, I think it's a bit more like, hey, come to the sanctuary. We're so excited that we get to pour into whatever you're doing out there. And the body of believers, coming together on Sunday so that you can go out there and be unified out there. And I just think it's a subtle mind shift. And I don't even think most of the time we know that we're doing that. But I just think in our effort to build the church, I think the question we have to ask is, are we building the organization or are we investing in organisms? Like, is it an organization or an organism? And again, that's a lot of semantics, but I think it's just something we've got to be more thoughtful of.
Yeah.
It's good, man.
Well, and even as you're talking about these types of things, social media, as pastors are trying to figure out how I reach the community in the best possible way. Like COVID didn't help any of that, where all of a sudden everybody felt like I have to go buy some camera and go online and stream. And then we all go back to normal services and they're like, well, we already have this thing going. So I guess we'll just continue to half pour resources into it, half pour into, the community that we have here. And I think there's a recentering that needs to happen with, I think, a ton of different churches of going, hey, what is the actual mission and values of who we are? Because COVID was an easy, big old reset button for people, but then it just kind of went wherever people ended up at the end of COVID and just continued to do whatever thing that they were doing.
Can I say one thing to that? Yeah. Like, just because I think that one of the opportunities though of churches in having all that stuff is they can teach people or provide a space that is highly needed. I live in Nashville and Franklin. There's not podcast studios to rent. There's like some okay ones. Mm-hmm. There's not like sound like rooms. So what a church is, even technologically, I think could actually be much more of a multi-use. Now I know that's creating a lot of headache for pastors, but again, you're measuring what, I get really excited when I see like a church host like a high school graduation. Because I think that's a good use of the building. I get excited when I think of churches going like, hey, we're going to create a co-working space, or we're going to use the podcast studio we built, we're going to actually rent it out to the community or give it away for free, or we're going to train, youth in the area. So I just think that that's one of the ways that all that technological apparatus can be used is because it's a huge need in our world. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know. I just think for any pastor, it's like wondering like, what do we do with all this stuff? I'm just like, dude, your community needs it, stuff that churches, and you started by saying it, stuff that churches do innately, businesses, schools, students, are trying to figure out, how to do it.
Yeah. Well, we have covered a ton of ground today.
Heck yeah.
I would be curious as you think about your own ministry context, the pastors that you're connected to, listening to this, we have people in all kinds of different ministry seats. Like, what's an encouragement or a challenge that you would leave with them to kind of, I don't know, just provide them a next step to wrestle with some of the ideas that we've been talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think that the lost art in church right now is listening. And I think it's probably because it's like the lost art in humanity right now. Mm. And I just think it's like, if you're an older person, create an environment like this and just ask the young people what they think. Just listen to them. Mm-hmm. Do you like the volunteer culture here? What do you think of our services? Just listen. If you're a young Gen Z person that thinks because you can like host a prayer room in your living room and you have 100,000 Instagram followers and you're all that, I dare you to ask your parents what they think about you. And I dare you to ask your boss what they think about, it's like, we just got to listen, we just got to listen to each other. And I think that that's one of my biggest convictions, even as I approach the content sphere, is just going like, bro, like we've got to remember there's real people on the other side of everything we post. And as Christians, I do think it's incumbent upon us to model conviction and model standing for the truth and having hard conversations, but we have to model it in the way that is biblical, which is more like this. So to me, I'm like, hey, I love that we're like getting spicy online. Okay, cool. Call someone out in a post or critique someone in the comment section. But at a certain point in the comment section, y'all just got to get on a call, and we've got to talk to each other. And I just think so much of the lessons we need to learn right now will come from listening to the people around us. Like, I think that a great question is like, am I creating space to listen to the people that work for me? Mm-hmm. Am I creating a space for the people on my volunteer teams? I know that even for the production guys listening, I'm like, feels like, you're like, all I freaking do is listen to the people's needs, and I'm like, yeah, well, maybe just go a step deeper and just ask them what they think about how you respond to their needs. And I think it's just like, it's just like marriage. Ephesians 5 is of course a verse about marriage. Submit yourself to one another out of reverence to Christ. But it's also a message for all of us that Christians are supposed to model this co-submission of where I'm like, I'm actually going to risk, it's like, I have something I need to like pop off on Kaleb for, but I'm going to start by being like, hey man, I wanted to just ask, like in our working relationship, is there anything I could be can I be doing anything better? I want to create a genuine place for you to just tell me.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the Christian ways to create the pathway for me to then
100%
also tell him that. And so, man, I just think if you, just like even like a very practical example, I bet you if a pastor who's getting older, sitting around with a bunch of Gen Z people, I promise you, not once will any of them say, please dress like me.
Yeah.
And I just, some of these mind games, I feel like, or what, they're not going to say you're too old. I don't think Gen Z or Gen Alpha have any problem with someone being older than them. I just think they wonder, do you care about me? Mm-hmm. And so I also sometimes think some of the things we do to reach the next generation, we're big and we're cool and we're on socials and we're doing all this posturing stuff. And I'm like, that's just making them feel even more disconnected from you. You know what makes someone feel connected to you? Creating tables. There's this, I'll shut up after this. Milestone in Dallas, huge church in Dallas, amazing work they're doing. They might be, to my knowledge, like the largest student ministry I've heard of happening in the world right now. Awesome. Just based off of what I understand about what they're doing. But the way that they follow up with new salvations on their big nights, they send them to another room, and the room is littered with tables, and there's moms and dads who volunteered that night to sit down and talk with kids who just gave their lives to Jesus or made an important spiritual step. And while they're sitting down talking to them, one of the things that they do is they call that kid's parents and say, hey, I'm sitting here with Timmy, and Timmy just giving his life to Jesus. That's baller. And tables, man. I think tables are the key.
It's a good word.
Cheers.
A very good word. Man, that's, I just think of like as a parent getting a call from some other adults and hey, I'm here with Timmy. And I'm like, what did Timmy do now? That's all I'm thinking of, because
what a nice surprise if it was something good.
But what a nice surprise. That's fascinating though. I love that.
And then I think, what if they're Muslim, and they're going to be really mad, they're like, or Mormon. My kid's at a Christian church.
He told me he was at Bobby's house tonight playing Halo.
Hey, if only. Do they still play Halo? Is that kids still play Halo?
Burnt Peanut, who is kind of like the top viewed gaming streamer right now, he did a Halo night. And Microsoft made some very huge internal changes to, basically they had made a proprietary software called Slipspace to create their games on. But the problem is every time they tried to onboard engineers, it took them like a year to learn the software. So that was causing a lot of problems in their development. So they actually switched to Unreal Engine, which is basically industry standard, about a year ago. And they're like, hey, we think now, where in the last 5 years we've made one game, I think in the next 2 years we're going to make 3 games. So I think Halo will make a comeback.
All right.
Halo's coming back, boys.
Go, That's awesome.
Let's go.
6th grade me.
LAN parties. Here we go.
Ready to rip.
Telling you, bro.
Yep. It's going to be good. Talk about community, right?
Talk about community.
It's good. You used to have to play video games in the same room. You couldn't just be on, your headset with people across the world. So let's bring that back.
100%.
More game. I mean, you were talking about, movie theaters coming back, like creating community.
Yeah.
Like how crazy would it be if we started making games that literally were only able to be played in person? You couldn't do online.
I think that's a fire idea.
I don't know.
The Walmart, it's the only Walmart in the country that has this. A Walmart in Franklin.
Okay.
Has a podcast studio, an esports lab, and a coffee shop.
What?
And I think they're starting to put some feelers out, and these early adapters of just like, hey, brick and mortar, the advantage of brick and mortar, the advantage is human connection.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have brick and mortar, ironically, we went over to the gaming station. So there's like, you can play there with like 16 friends. There's even, they could stream it. So they're partnering with Full Sail. It's really cool.
That's great.
We should, next time, if you guys ever come down to Nashville, we should do something with them. I know those guys. It'd be a fun.
That's awesome.
Just like, it's a really practical tech setup where I'm just like, oh, you could actually turn around a broadcast, a podcast, they have a couple different like sound recording rooms in a Walmart. But I think the thing they're banking on is human creativity, human connection. And then I think obviously for them, they want to sell some products.
By the way, on your way home, grab some milk and eggs in the back.
Well, everything that comes out of that is like, whatever, powered by Walmart, So
100%.
They're not doing it for free.
That's fascinating.
Anyway, that's great, man. Well, thanks for sharing.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
If there's anybody that wanted to, follow you and what you're doing, is there anything that they should look for? Or?
Yeah, I mean, Jon W. Rush on pretty much all the platforms. My website hosts everything. You can find our business and our nonprofit there, but it's just, I love the church, man. And you know, the church has outlasted every empire. And I think that there's something special to being a Christian, but there's something even more special to being a Christian as a part of the church, because we are historical, we are global, and because of Jesus, we will outlast like, it just gives me a lot of courage. I'm just like, it's going to be hard and it's going to be crazy, but we win in the end.
Yeah.
And I don't just think that means from an eternal standpoint. I just think culturally, like Rome fell, the church didn't. You know, like when Soviet Russia fell, like Orthodox, you know, churches in Russia, like like everything was still fine. And so, as scary of a moment as it is, I think we should have a bit of historical mojo of us, like, yeah, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like, but we will win as a group of people. And hopefully we get to be a part of seeing more and more people become part of that body of Christ. So let's win.
I love that, dude.
Should we cheers?
Cheers.
Cheers
with our empty coffee cups and a can of water.
The podcast is wrapping up because all of our cups are empty. That's right. It's been a good conversation.
Dude, thank you so much again for being here. And yeah, we're stoked. We need to do this again.
Okay.
And go do
it in a Walmart.
Early.
In a Walmart. Yeah. We should do content. We should do an Amplio event. Well, let's wrap the podcast and then I'll brainstorm.
Nice. Very good. Until next time.
Sounds good, dude.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody. We'll see you all soon.